This is the Friday, June 2nd, 2017 version of the Market Plus segment. Joining us now is Darin Newsom. Darin, welcome back.
Thank you, Mike.
We did not have a chance to discuss the cotton market when we were on the program. Off 40-some cents this week. What are your thoughts on cotton?
You know, to me, it looks more of a seasonal play than anything. This is the time of year where, we've put in our top. And it's kind of, you're still looking at the old crop market, and it starts tumbling back down. So, it was a sharp sell-off. We went through some previous lows. If we look at the weekly charts, what's going to interest me more, as we start to break away from, the concerns over tight supply and demand in old crop and start to focus more on the new crop, then I think we could get this market to stabilize for a little while, but. It did sell off pretty hard. We've seen some pressure coming from, a lot of it coming from the commercial side of the market, some from non-commercial. So this could have, I would expect this to have some carryover pressure into next week, maybe over the next couple weeks.
Now, as you look out to the new crop on the side of cotton, is the market starting to build in any premium due to the constant wetness that's been happening down in the south?
I think that's where we're really going to have to start watching, see if this D can start to get some legs underneath it, and if it's, if that D March spread starts to, we start to see the carry weaken a little bit, see the D start to pull away from the March. That's going to mean we've got some commercial buying coming in. That's going to indicate that there is getting to be some concern, possibly of a smaller crop again in 2017, leading to another year of tight supplies. Okay.
But we don't see that happening quite yet.
I think it's just we've got to let this run its course for a little while, because we did push the cotton market up quite a ways. So the fact that it's letting off a little bit of steam, this goes back to kind of our livestock markets as well. It's the same sort of situation. Market's going to have to let off steam every once in a while, and that's what should result. That's what, the cotton market is kind of the result of that.
Okay. Now, we do have a lot of questions here from our followers on Twitter and Facebook. We encourage all of you to find us on those places, follow us, and shoot us your questions for our fantastic market analysts. The first one is from Brian in Wahoo, Nebraska. And Brian wants to know, does today's price movement, Friday's price movement, tell us that Tuesday's irrelevant crop conditions report was only relevant on Wednesday?
Was it even relevant on Wednesday?
Well, that's the question. Yes.
To me, no.
Okay.
To investment traders, maybe for about 5-10 minutes.
Even that big drop in nationwide crop conditions, corn down 14%, good to excellent in Minnesota.
What's the correlation with that and final yield? There isn't one. That's the issue. I mean, this is the initial crop condition rating. There is little to no correlation with final yield. I don't use the numbers at all as an analyst. Now, there's traders out there who do. Farmers love these numbers. Was there much relevance beyond Wednesday? No. Markets are trading the weather now. We'll get another set of numbers on Monday. Tuesday, we'll see them react to them, and then we'll be back on about our way. We're going to stay in the same trends until something major happens, something much more major than weekly crop condition numbers.
More major than weekly crop conditions, and apparently more major than predictions of rainfall. Now it seems like this market wants to see puddles in the field, rain on the ground before it reacts.
Okay, this, I don't know if we've got another question that leads into this answer, this discussion more, and we could go on for another 30 minutes. But why should the market get excited? Why should investment traders get excited about anything in the corn market right now if USDA has already said in its May report that everyone points to as, written in stone, 15 months down the road, we're going to have 2.1 billion bushels of corn on the books. The last 2 years, they've been spot on. So you've got a prediction out there for 15 months down the road of we're not going to have a tight supply situation. If I'm an investor, I'm looking somewhere else. I'm going over to the cattle market. I might look at cotton. I might even look at wheat before I'd look at corn, because I've already been told. And everybody praises the USDA. Fine. This is what you get. They've already said we're not going to have a tight situation 15 months away.
And that actually does lead to a question from Quentin, the grain grower, on Twitter. Quentin's question is there any value to USDA reports to the market? Now, you've laid out the the con side of that argument. Is there a benefit to having these reports, be it crop conditions, be it quarterly grain stocks, be it the intentions, any of that?
We have to break these out into categories.
Okay.
The reports that look back to weekly export sales and shipments, the quarterly stocks numbers, these are backwards looking numbers and they're useful. We can see what we had on the books at that point. We can do our analysis off of that. When we make projections, not when we make projections, but when USDA makes projections and tells the entire trading world exactly what's going to happen, what's the value in that? What other industry allows that to happen? But this industry in particular thrives on it. They can't live without it. So this is the result.
All right. Quentin's got another question for you, still focusing on the USDA aspect.
He must have known I was going to be on this.
Well, yeah, so that's why we're glad you're here. So do you believe, as a technical trader, as somebody who watches the charts, takes your cues from the market, do you believe there is a USDA report that could break the market, the corn market, out of its range this summer? Could a USDA report be the catalyst to get this market moving one way or the other?
Sure, it's possible. I mean, June, if we see some sort of miraculous reduction in either old crop or new crop ending stocks, that could be what sends the buy signals to the computers.
Have exports been strong enough to get you excited about that yet?
Exports have been factored in at this point. Now they're still running ahead of projections by about 200-300 million bushels. So if that gets calculated in, but the problem is it's not going to. It's not going to yet. We might not see that until, say, next January. So, we've got the June report coming up, then the July and the August and so on. In between that, we actually have a report that means something with the quarterly stocks coming out and the adjustment on acres.
30th.
That's
we'll
June 30th. That report, to me, out of this long list of reports that we're going to have over the course of the summer, is probably the most important. Let's see what we've done through 3 quarters as far as demand goes, as far as pulling down our stocks, and what adjustments to acres are we actually seeing as of June 1.
Now, on the adjustment to acres thing, you do talk to farmers all across the country, both on Twitter and in real life. What have you heard with regard to replanting? Have we lost substantial corn acres, or at least have we had to replant substantial acres?
Yeah, one of DTN's reporters, Emily Unglesby, wrote a great piece about how replanting has still up on DTN, has reached historic levels. I mean, and she goes, from across the United States, particularly in the central and the eastern corn belts. But yeah, we've seen incredible numbers. Market doesn't care. Show where there is damage. Show that just because we've got replant, we're going to drop yield by 10, 15, 20 bushels to the acre. It's not out there. Let's see what the weather does the rest of the summer. Then maybe the market will get excited.
Is having replants like this at least setting the stage for more volatility in any kind of a weather or uncertain period? Again, I know you guys got to get a chuckle every time I mention my column here on the show, but it's on the bingo sheet. It's on the bingo sheet. I know see what get your markers out. We're going to give you a point here.
The drinking game is how many times he'll mention it each show. Yes. But I talk about the seasonality of corn, and one of the seasonal factors that we see is volatility towards the end of June starts to spike, and it tends to last up through the fall. So it's just a normal thing. Where does this come from? Because seasonally, non-commercial traders cover their short position into the summer, during the summer, because of weather problems. So, I mean, it's not, again, not all that difficult to see. Yeah, I'm expecting volatility to go up, and if it's done because of non-commercial buying, that's why I think we're going to get a rally this summer. Are non-commercials, the spec funds, are they currently record short or still just heavily short? Still heavily short. Okay. There for a few weeks, they reduced it. They added it back to it as far as this most recent CFTC report, which is as of, last Tuesday. So again, another report that looks backwards. It's not all that useful. But yeah, they're still holding a large net short position. Okay. Final question for you of our Twitter questions. This one is from Richard in Belle Eagle, Tennessee. He's on Twitter at BelleEagle1. He says, and you've kind of alluded to this already, do you see summer markets being hot fun in the summertime
or the summertime blues?
Richard knows me well. He knows how I, again, like to tie everything into pop culture, songs in particular. So I would probably have to lean towards the former. I would say it's hot fun in the summertime. To a certain degree.
Okay, are beans going to be hot fun in the summertime?
Not as much, because I think we're going to be dealing with the supply of Brazilian beans really working their way into the system.
Are they going to? Are Brazilian farmers going to be willing to sell a hedge against inflation?
Yeah. That's a great question, and that. You know, I've even visited with Angie on Twitter about this very thing with Brazilian corn and soybeans. You know, what is their incentive to sell? I guess theoretically one would think that, yeah, they're going to sell some of their crop and we're going to see this huge supply of soybeans because they need the cash. And they don't have the storage facilities that we have, the on-farm storage facilities that we have. So I would think that you're going to see some sales. You're going to see increased supplies available, but we've still got good shipments going on. And we've still got, as we talked about in the program, this buildup of unshipped bushels, growing each and every week. So.
It's a little something to be nervous about.
A little bit.
Before we let you go home, we wanted to get to you a commodity question of the week. This comes from a student up at Iowa State University. And we want all of you who are students or just grown-ups, you don't have to be a student. If you've got a question, get out your phone, send a video, and we'll get you on TV. And if you want to learn more about this project, you can listen to the M2M podcast number 143. So, Darin, here is the latest installment of our college-level agricultural student questions.
Is it worth going to college to get a degree in ag business?
You can almost take that question in two parts.
Okay. Is
it worth going to college? Yeah. I think so. I've got two kids. I've got one in college, one headed that direction. You know, is the degree that you get doesn't necessarily have to be the job that you find interesting. I think, you know, what I was always told in college, and I lived this, is it doesn't matter what degree you have as long as you have that piece of paper. You know, employers like to see that piece of paper. Now, whether or not that's still true, I don't know. It's been a little while since I've been out in the job market.
But you don't have a degree in ag business.
I do not have a degree in ag business. I started off in math at Fort Hays State there in northwest Kansas. After 2 years, I realized I was going to flunk out, staying in math. So I wanted something where I could do 2 more years and be gone. So I switched over to political science. That entitled me to dump trucks for a number of years after that. So I didn't really use my political science degree, still don't use my political science degree, but I have the piece of paper.
Right.
So yeah, I think going to college, unless you're in a situation where you know what you're going to do and you might as well go in and start doing some internships and this sort of thing and just getting on with your life. I've known a lot of people who've been very successful doing that. But yeah, if you want to go to college, by all means, it's a good thing to do. Do you necessarily have to get a degree in ag business to stay in agriculture? No, not at all.
And I would add as a follow-up to that, because I know we have a lot of viewers at four-year schools, but also at community colleges. I'm a proud community college graduate. They've got great programs at community colleges, especially if you're not sure what your first 2 years are going to look like anyway. Save those pennies and
just to throw this in, whenever I interview folks, coming in to be an analyst with DTN or whatever, I don't ask them necessarily about what's their ag business background. The thing I'm most interested in is, what do they like to read? So, I mean, even if they have something like a literature degree, but they find it interesting to be in agriculture, that works for me. Because I'm more interested in what they're actually interested in.
Can you think?
Can you think? And that's what, and you can prove that with any degree, except political science. Case in point. So.
Oh, a lot of stuff to chew on, a lot of thoughts. Darin Newsom, thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
I appreciate you having me again.
Join us again next week when John Roach will sit across from me at the market-to-market table, and we will explore how catfish farmers are fighting off foreign competition. Until then, thanks for watching or listening. I'm Mike Pearson. Have a great week.